looking at races writing this week. And today we are going to break down the R and A in races. Since this is our first week to write in 4th grade, we will be writing this week together. Next week you will be writing independently. But we need to understand what each letter means and how growing readers write. So we are going to start today with our R. I'm going to be writing, and if you're seated in the classroom, you're going to use your pencil to make your interactive notebook look just like my screen. So I'm going to begin with my R in my 4 square. It goes in the middle, and this is how I'm going to organize, where I restate using the most important words from the question to create a statement sentence. So now I'm going to go back to the prompt, and I'm going to find the most important parts of the prompt to include in my R. So I'm noticing the prompt says, in purple, you have read the excerpt from Because of Winn-Dixie. Opal's first friend in Naomi is Miss Franny Block. There is a huge age difference between the two of them. What text evidence helps the reader believe that Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long period of time? I'm going to underline this sentence because I think it's something I'm going to need to write about in just a moment. It's important. It is what the prompt is asking me to do. It also says, be sure to use specific details and examples from the text to support my answer. I know I'm going to do this when I get to the C in races, because C stands for use evidence from the text to support your answer. Well, that's exactly what the prompt says. So now I'm ready to brainstorm my R in races. Use all important words from the question to create a statement sentence. Well, since my prompt is asking me what text evidence helps the reader believe that Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long period of time, I think I need to use those same words in my R. So I'm going to write in my R, and I'm actually going to come down so that you can see it better. And you can either write it in your diamond or you can draw an arrow if you need more space. I'm going to write, you're going to write with me. All students are writing. The text helps readers, all students are writing, believe Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long time. Now I'm noticing the same exact words were used in my prompt, and I know that because I underlined them. So all I did for my R is make the same exact words into a sentence, and that is why it's called restating, because I'm stating it again. So all students should have, the text helps readers believe Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long time. If you cannot fit that in the diamond, then you can do like I did and draw an arrow and write it in the white space underneath. All students should be writing the same R that I have. I have restated by using all important words from the question to create a statement sentence. In just a moment, we will move to the R in races. Now we're moving to the A in races. A says, answer all parts of the question in complete sentences. So in this box, I need to organize my ideas about how I plan to prove that Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long period of time. So now I'm going to brainstorm how the text proves they will stay friends. Now I'm going back to the text because of Winn-Dixie. I'm going to look at the very end of the passage. And I'm noticing in the passage it says, "We could be friends," I said to Miss Franny. I mean, you and me and Winn-Dixie, we could all be friends. Look at how Miss Franny responds. Miss Franny smiled even bigger. "Why, that would be grand," she said, "just grand." And I know another word for grand is great or wonderful. So this clue tells me that she not only is agreeing to be friends, but she really needs Opal to be her friend because maybe, just maybe, she's just as lonely as Opal. Now I'm also noticing as I keep reading, it tells me, and right at that minute, right when the three of us had decided to be friends, who should come marching into the Herman W. Block Memorial Library but old pinch-faced Amanda Wilkinson. She walked right up to Miss Franny's desk and said, "I finished Johnny Tremaine, and I enjoyed it very much. I would like something even more difficult to read now because I am an advanced reader." Ugh, she sounds annoying. "Yes, dear, I know," said Miss Franny. She got up out of her chair. Amanda pretended like I wasn't there. She stared right past me. "Are dogs allowed in the library?" she asked Miss Franny as they walked away. "Certain ones," said Miss Franny. "A select few." And then she turned around and winked at me. I smiled back. I had just made my first friend in Naomi, and nobody was going to mess that up for me. Not even old pinch-faced Amanda Wilkinson. Now remember, my prompt is asking me to write about how I know they're going to stay friends for a long time. Well, I'm noticing some evidence that can help me in my writing. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to highlight here where they first decide to be friends, and then at the end of the text where the author gives us a clue to prove they will stay friends. Since Opal says nobody's going to mess this up, that's the author's way of giving me the clue. They're going to stay friends no matter what they face, even mean-faced Amanda, that's right, Wilkinson. So now I think I know how I can prove my idea on my Foursquare because I went back to the text to answer the question. So let's think about how we can make this into a complete sentence in our words. And when we move to the C tomorrow, we will copy it straight from the text because remember, C means cite evidence straight from the text. So let's go ahead and think about how we can make that A. This time, I'm going to write it inside the box. And I'm going to choose to make it a text box because I think I can write neater. You will use your pencil to fit it inside the A in your ELA IMB. So now I'm ready to write my A in my Foursquare. I'm trying to prove what evidence helps the reader believe that Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long period of time. I already have my restate, and now, since this prompt is asking me to prove how I know they will be friends, I don't want to write it from the text because then in my C I will have nothing to write. So I'm going to put it in my words first. Using my text, I'm going to write in the A box of my graphic organizer, the author. Make sure you're updating your interactive notebook to match mine. The author gives clues. All students should be writing with me. The author gives clues to help the reader, or let's just this time use the word us, to help us know more about their friendship. So now I can to put my R and my A together, and I think it's beginning to sound like a well-developed paragraph. I'm going to go back to my R. The text helps readers believe Miss Franny and Opal will remain friends for a long time. And now my A. The author gives clues to help us know more about their friendship. And you might already make a prediction that when we move to the C tomorrow, that we will actually write those words straight from the text to help our writing make more sense on how the author tells us they will be friends for a long time. Today, we wrote the R and the A in races. Tomorrow, we will add the C to our races writing. Remember our 3 words for this week. Please use your hands as we review. Optional. Optional means left to choice. Remember, reason. Use your hands to show me reason. Reason means a statement to explain. And I always think about the word why because a reason tells why. And then lastly, maturity, which means fully grown. The opposite would be childish. In our interactive notebook, we can find information to help us be a growing reader when we're thinking about making inferences. On page 41 of our interactive notebook, we have our notes. All students, please open to page 41 of our interactive notebook. Our interactive notebook tells us that authors don't always tell their reader everything, but instead we have to use text clues, what we already know, and add those things together to lead us to an inference. Growing readers, first they stop and think about what they know or their schema. Then they move into caution where they look for clues in the text. We call that evidence. And then thirdly, then they make their inference. So they create something new based on what they know and their evidence. Growing readers can make inferences by thinking about how does a character feel? What is something that motivates the character or the reason why they do something? They also think about how the setting changes or impacts the story. They also think about conflicts or problems that are in the story and what may happen based on what they know. That's called an inference or a prediction. So now that we understand more about what our notes say, I'd like for you guys to look at this graphic organizer with me. So I'm noticing my text evidence or my text clue. It says, I was picking out my books and kind of humming to myself when suddenly there was a loud and scary scream. Oh, I think I can make an inference based on this clue. So I'm thinking about something I already know. Well, I already know that people often hum when they're happy, like this. If you've ever heard anyone hum, that normally tells you they're in a really good mood. So that can lead me to an inference. I'm going to add together my clue from the text and what I already know. Since it says that Opal was picking out her books, she was kind of humming, this can lead me to an inference that Opal is in a good mood. So now let's think a little bit deeper. Here's my next text clue. Winn-Dixie raised his head off his paws and looked back and forth between me and Miss Franny. So remember, Winn-Dixie's a dog. So Winn-Dixie looked back and forth, back and forth. I already know something about Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie is very smart. So I can infer something. I want you to think with me about what we can infer. Based on that clue, Winn-Dixie raised his head off his paws and looked back and forth. And I already know that Winn-Dixie is smart. What can I infer? Talk about it with your partner. Let's look at what we can infer. Based on this clue, I think that Winn-Dixie is saying Miss Franny and Opal should be friends. Since Winn-Dixie looked at one person, then the other, and they were talking about becoming friends, I can make that inference. That's what Winn-Dixie must think. Now, the author didn't tell me that. So I had to infer it based on the clues, which is what a growing reader does. Here's another clue. A bear, I asked. He has come back. Remember, this is Miss Franny. She's saying this. So let's see what we already know. Miss Franny is still afraid all these years later from her experience with the bear. So that leads me to an inference. I can infer that a bear has been in the library before based on her reaction.
But it already says that.
It does say that. So I can now know that she's still afraid of that. Did the author say Miss Franny is still afraid? So I had to create something new based on the clue. Well, that is what a growing reader does when they make an inference. And here's our last one, and then you guys are going to begin your small group practice. I want you guys to look at this one with me. Out there, she said, and raised a finger and pointed at Winn-Dixie standing up on his hind legs looking in the window for me. Listen to that clue. So now I'm thinking about what I already know. She's telling her, it's okay, it's just my dog out there. Well, I already know that Miss Franny is afraid. She's still afraid, even though she doesn't realize it's just a dog. So, Makai, that leads me to an inference that Miss Franny thought Winn-Dixie was a bear at that moment in the text. The author did not tell me that. Now, Bo, you might be thinking, well, we already know that because later in the story it tells me that. But at this point in the story, I don't know that unless I make that inference. So notice these are inferences that happen right here in the text where that text evidence is. Our notes tell us that when you're writing or when you're talking about a text that you've read, it is important to use text evidence to prove your answers. This is when we go back to the text and we find a sentence, word for word, that proves our ideas. So it's important that we know that these notes are found on page 41. Here's some sentence starters. On page blank it said, this is a way we can prove our thinking when we're looking at the text. Or the author stated or implied blank. An example of blank is blank. Because the text said blank, I think blank. Or I think this because the text said blank. Good or growing readers always answer by proving it from the text, and we call that evidence. So I want you guys to do one with me where we're thinking about proving our thoughts. How can Opal convince her dad to let her get a dog, or how did he? How did she, Opal, convince her dad to let her get a dog? I'm going to give you my answer, and I want to see who might can help me prove it by going back to the text. Here's my answer. Opal explains that Winn-Dixie is needy and needs their help. So let's see who might can prove that idea from the text. So now I see right under the picture evidence to prove my answer. She explains to her father, well, you're always preaching about how we should take care of the needy. Winn-Dixie is needy too. So let's do what you say we should do and let's take care of Winn-Dixie. I'm going to take this word for word from the passage, and I need that as my text evidence. Now, when I'm writing text evidence, to prove that my ideas come from the text, I'm going to put quotation marks around them. So take a moment to look at my ideas. I have supported them with the best answers. So I'm thinking about how I can prove this answer. How did Opal react when she heard the loud scream in the library? Let's see what the best answer is. Opal runs to the front of the library. So I'm going to go back to the text, and I'm looking for how I can prove that she ran when she heard that noise. I'm looking back at the text, and I'm noticing it says in the first paragraph, I'm going to point to it. It says, I was picking out my books and kind of humming to myself, and all of a sudden, there was this loud and scary scream. I went running up to the front of the library. Doesn't that prove my answer that she went running? So I'm going to take that exact word for word, and I'm going to add it to my graphic organizer. when I'm proving an idea with text evidence, I'm also going to put quotes around it to prove it came straight from the text. As I think about this question, I'm remembering I can go back to the text, and it says here, I am like my mama in that I like to be told stories. Isn't that proving my answer that they both like to listen, hear, to stories? What do you guys think, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and take that evidence straight from the text. We call that text evidence. I'm going to add it to my graphic organizer to prove my answer, and I'm going to put quotation marks around it. That is what a growing reader does to prove their ideas when they're answering questions.